Today, Cayman Marine Lab is going to be talking about the mangroves. There are about 70 species of mangrove, and they're found all throughout the world in tropical and some subtropical regions. And they're found along coastlines. This might sound counterintuitive, on the windward sides of islands, because they cannot tolerate big seas that would undermine them. And that's because the windward sides of these islands have got coral reefs, barrier reefs, or bank fringing reefs. And what that does is it protects the coastline. And in fact, mangroves protect the coastline too. They act like a sponge, and they help to buffer these strong waves and winds that are coming in. There are 4 different species of mangrove found in this part of the world, in the Caribbean. The most important of those, Rhizophora mangle, or the red mangrove. The red mangrove is an incredible tree. It can get to be about 70 feet in height. The majority of them are much smaller, and these red mangroves are remarkable in that they are able to live while being immersed in salt water, something that's deadly to most plants. And in fact, they have to work very hard, and they do. They are able, with their prop roots are seen here, diving down in the water, supporting these trees. Many of these prop roots don't even reach the bottom, but these prop roots have got these little pores, these lenticels, and through an ultrafiltration method, they are able to desalinate the water. They send the fresh water down to the bottom of the roots, that are the parts that are actually in the mud. And because they have to work so hard to get this fresh water, you'll notice that the leaves are very thick and they're waxy, something you might see on plants that are associated with deserts, actually. And this will prevent evaporation or transpiration of this valuable fresh water. These red mangroves are, or have been, under attack all throughout the world because they're found in areas that developers would like to put houses. In fact, it has been found out that they are very, very important environmentally, not only from the aspect of protecting the coastlines from storms, but also because they are tremendous nursery areas. A lot of the animals that you find on a coral reef, just out around the corner here, they can't make it as juveniles. They have to have a place, a nursery area, until they can get to a certain size, and then they'll move out and take their place on the reef. And this is a wonderful place for these juveniles. And in fact, on any given day, you might jump in and look underneath the canopy of these red mangroves, and you might see 100 eyes looking back at you of all these fish and things like that. At any rate, what makes these plants remarkable, another thing, is that they are able to propagate. If you'll notice that they have got these dangly bits here, these are called sea pencils, and these sea pencils are the next generation. And these red mangroves, what they're doing with their many prop roots in the water, they're slowing down the movement of that water. And there were tiny little particles that were buoyed up by the movement of this water, and now those particles are falling to the bottom, and they're making a very thick mud. Then you have leaves. There's a tremendous amount of leaves that are always falling. Think of this as being a packet of energy. This is now falling to the bottom. There's very little movement, so it'll go pretty much straight down. And then you'll have the organisms that are going to work on this to break it down. You have got all these bacteria, and you have little crustaceans, what have you, and they're breaking down these leaves, and they're adding to this sediment, and so much so that they're causing the bottom to rise. And these red mangroves, they'll drop their sea pencils, and these sea pencils, if it is shallow enough, they will stick right into the bottom, and then you'll have a new tree formed from that sea pencil. And If not, if they don't reach the bottom, they'll float horizontally for a few days, and after a while, one end will absorb the water, and then they'll stay viable for up to a year, poking around until they find a suitable place, and then they'll start their colony there. But all of this is causing the change in the bottom, and it's causing these mangroves to march out to sea. All right, so some years down the road, you might see the edge of this mangrove forest, 50 feet out this way. And behind the red mangroves, we have got the black mangroves. The black mangroves, and they're not really closely related. The black mangroves are not as saltwater tolerant. They are still being wetted and being immersed in somewhat in salt water. And behind them we have the white mangroves. There's this whole succession that's happening. And behind the white mangroves you might have the buttonwood or the gray mangroves. And one of the most magnificent things about these mangroves, you'll notice that on these prop roots, they are festooned with light. You can have, for example, a prop root with hundreds of species. I saw a sea squirt go off just there. We've got these flat tree oysters. We've got sponges. We've got a wealth of organisms, and there is a whole order to these organisms as well. There are some barnacles. The organisms that are higher up have more physical stress and less biological competition. The ones at the bottom, not as much physical stress and more biological competition. We see a large prop root here. Oh my God! I mean, look at that. We have corals on this, sea squirts, which are tunicates. There's little shrimp, little lobsters on there. It's amazing the amount of life that you will find on these mangroves, these important mangroves. But these mangroves are not just important for the marine critters, but you'll find that they're great rookeries of egrets and herons, and even the magnificent frigate bird will come home and roost in these mangroves. Iguanas, now we're having an influx of iguanas. They like to spend the night on these mangroves. So there you have it. You can learn more about the mangroves and many other groups of these organisms, and you can contact us at www.caymanmarinelab.com.